Stannis Baratheon. One of the most surprising things about Stannis Baratheon's character is just how popular he's become in the A Song of Ice and Fire fan community. His character is so well liked that some fans refer to him affectionately as Stannis the Manus. The reason why this is so surprising is because Stannis is not exactly a good person by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, he does a lot of questionable things throughout the course of the story. He cheats on his wife with Melisandre, tries to sacrifice Robert's bastard, and he actually murders his own brother with dark magic. So he's not the paragon of virtue by any means. However, in a story like this, none of these characters are paragons of virtue. All of the characters in George R.R. Martin's stories do questionable things throughout the narrative, and none of them are exactly completely good or evil. So in a story such as this, where the lines of morality are so blurry, it's interesting that Stannis has become such a fascinating and beloved character amongst the fan community. So let's talk about why Stannis Baratheon is such a fascinating character, and why the fans in particular love his character so much. The number one reason why people love Stannis' character as much as they do is because of how just and dutiful he is within the context of this world. Westeros is a very corrupt and unjust society, where people who do bad things tend to succeed, while those that do the right things tend to end up dead. In a world such as this, it's actually quite admirable that there's characters like Stannis who try to enforce the law and exact justice on those who are corrupt and unjust. In the book, this is made a lot clearer because the only people who fear Stannis are characters like Tywin, Cersei, Littlefinger, and Varys, characters who do mostly evil things and who are pretty much corrupt. They fear Stannis because Stannis is a character that is single-minded when it comes to justice, believing that the law should be enforced regardless of the circumstances. Davos is an example of just how single-minded Stannis can be about this issue, chopping off his fingers for illegally smuggling, even though that very same smuggling allowed Davos to save his life. So Stannis remains strict when it comes to matters of justice. The other characters in the story actually try to use this against him, arguing that Stannis is too strict, humorless, and stern, and that the throne should be denied to him partly because of that reason. However, Stannis remains adamant on pressing his claim, believing that it is his duty to take the throne and wear the crown. This is another reason why fans love Stannis so much, because while other characters want the throne due to their personal ambitions, Stannis wants the throne because he believes that it is his duty. He believes that the throne is rightfully his, and that everybody who denies it is a traitor. The funny thing about it is that Stannis is actually absolutely right about this whole thing. The throne actually is his because Cersei's children are not Robert's. Joffrey, Tommen, and Myrcella are all bastards born out of incest, so Stannis, as Robert's eldest brother, is actually the true heir to the Iron Throne. Stannis is the one who's actually being wronged in this situation, and since everybody is corrupt and unjust, they deny him the throne. It's actually very frustrating to see this happen to Stannis, but people also love Stannis because he never gives up. Everyone knows that Stannis is just and dutiful, but everyone also believes that Stannis is too strict and stern. This can make Stannis' pursuit of the Iron Throne feel like an uphill battle, and yet Stannis remains single-minded when it comes to his goals. This is another aspect of Stannis' character that fans admire about him. Stannis never gives up, no matter what. He is a stoic and determined character, a character with an iron will. This makes Stannis a dangerous enemy to have in the story, because he fights on even in the midst of defeat. Even when the situation seems dire and unwinnable, Stannis remains steadfast and determined. In A Dance with Dragons, during the hard march to Winterfell, Stannis' men are starving and exhausted. Asha looks on at Stannis as he stares into a fire. She thinks to herself, there was power in his stare, an iron ferocity that told Asher that this man would never, ever turn back from his course. Stannis' determination and single-mindedness even puts fear into the heart of his enemies, powerful men like Tywin Lannister. In a chapter in A Game of Thrones, Tywin tells Tyrion, "I have felt from the very beginning that Stannis was a greater danger than all the others combined." Tywin says this because Stannis has a solid reputation throughout all of Westeros. Everyone knows that he would rather die than give up. They all remember how Stannis Baratheon withstood the siege of Storm's End against the forces of the Reach. As Robert's rebellion was coming to an end, Stannis had been ordered to hold Storm's End, and hold it he did. After Robert had lost the Battle of Ashford against Randall Tarly, the Tyrells and the Tarly army marched on Storm's End, but since Storm's End is impregnable, they could only lay a siege against it, hoping during the time that Stannis would finally break and surrender the castle. His food supplies were low, and the castle was unprepared for a siege, so the loyalists probably expected for the castle to fall quickly. However, the siege lasted a year. Stannis' army was dwindling from disease and starvation, but they survived through it all by eating dogs and cats. Stannis would never surrender. Their saving grace came by the form of Davos Seaworth, a smuggler who managed to pass through the Red Wine fleet undetected and to get some food to Stannis' remaining soldiers as well as Stannis himself. The food was able to sustain them until the Starks came to lift the siege, but Stannis was always remembered for his resolve and determination through it all. Even during the War of the Five Kings, Stannis is the most feared out of all of them because of how capable he is as a battle commander and also for his determination and willpower, even in the face of defeat.
We march to victory, or we march to defeat. But we go forward, only forward.
This is why fans think that Stannis is a badass and refer to him as the Manus. It's because of his stoic personality, but also his absolute determination. This leads a lot of fans to admire Stannis and to consider him as one of the best characters in the series. However, despite his stoicism and iron will, Stannis is still capable of moments of vulnerability. Some of the best chapters in the book involving Stannis Baratheon's character are perhaps those in which Stannis is a bit more vulnerable with Davos Seaworth. Davos is the POV character in the books that gives us a window into Stannis Baratheon's character, and we learn a lot about Stannis through Davos' perspective because Stannis often confides in Davos, not just as his hand, but as his friend. Davos is the only person that Stannis ever really refers to as his friend, and so he often feels comfortable sharing his feelings and thoughts about his life to him. For example, he tells Davos that he never showed a lot of care for his brothers, but now that they're gone, he realizes just how much he actually cared for them. He particularly says this about Renly after Renly dies in a tragic accident. Stannis is involved in the death of Renly, but in the book, it's interesting to see how Stannis mourns Renly's death and expresses a great deal of regret. He says, "Renly offered me a peach at our parley, mocked me, defied me, threatened me, and offered me a peach. I thought he was drawing a blade and went for mine own. Was that his purpose, to make me show fear? Or was it one of his pointless jests? When he spoke of how sweet the peach was, did his words have some hidden meaning?" The king gave a shake of his head, like a dog shaking a rabbit to snap its neck. "Only Renly could vex me so with a piece of fruit. He brought his doom on himself with his treason. But I did love him, Davos. I know that now. I swear, I will go to my grave thinking of my brother's peach." This moment is actually very sad, and it's a moment of vulnerability for Stannis' character that humanizes him and allows for fans to empathize with him. Out of all of his brothers, Stannis was always the one who seemed to be liked the least by people. He always lived under the shadow of his legendary brother, Robert, and he never felt like he could do anything that Robert hadn't done first or better. It's only when Robert dies that Stannis realizes just how much he actually meant to him. He realizes that he loved his brother, but that perhaps that love was never reciprocated. Robert never even showed any appreciation towards Stannis for withstanding the siege of Storm's End. Rather, he thanked Ned Stark for breaking the siege and rewarded Renly by giving him Storm's End. Storm's End is the seat of House Baratheon and should have went to Stannis as the second-born brother. But Robert gave it to Renly and told Stannis to hold Dragonstone. Stannis actually brings this up several times in the books, and you can tell that it's a source of great resentment towards his brother. He couldn't really forgive Robert for doing that to him, and he never liked Ned or Renly as a result. Again, it's only when Renly dies that he realizes just how much he meant to him. So it's the complexities of Stannis' character that allows his fans to empathize with him and to understand his character better. We understand why he is the way that he is because of these moments of vulnerability, which allow us to get a closer look at his character and sometimes to even his motivations. So these are some of the reasons that I believe that people love Stannis' character. He is dutiful, just, and determined, but he is also capable of vulnerability. These traits actually lend a level of depth and complexity to his character, which makes him a bit more endearing towards the fan community. Or does it? What do you think? Let me know down below in the comments section, and if you like this video, click the thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Peace.